Welcome to the Cannapreneur Partners Canna Media podcast. This is a podcast about the cannabis industry and those involved in it. You can easily listen to us on your favorite podcast platform by searching for Canna-Media. While we may talk to medical professionals and investment professionals, we are not offering medical or investment advice for any individual situation. Please consult with your specific individual health or investment advisors before acting on anything you hear in the podcast. Guest views and opinions may not also be ours. Finally, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please visit us at info@canna-media.org. That's info@canna-media.org. Thank you. Welcome back, and thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Cannapreneur Partners Canna Media podcast. Today, we have a very exciting guest on. We have Angela Brown, who's the co-founder and CEO of T.Bear Inc, DBA Coast Cannabis in Massachusetts. She was the first independent cannabis manufacturer in the state. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so tell us your story. Tell us, because, it's funny, everyone in Massachusetts, no one went to school 10 years ago wanting to work in cannabis because the industry didn't exist. So everyone in the industry has kind of found their way into the industry through various ways. So it's one of the funnest parts of this for me is to kind of find out how everyone got to where they are. So kind of give us your story.
Sure, I agree. And I find that to be actually the most exciting part of cannabis is that everyone comes from a different walk of life. And there's a need
true.
for everyone from every walk of life.
Yeah.
So very welcoming. But my journey started as a reluctant person to cannabis, to be very honest.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
you can say I'm a converted believer, a full-hearted believer in it now. So the way it started, of course, growing up here in Massachusetts, I was always around cannabis use, people smoking it. And for me, it wasn't for me. I kind of made that decision, based on what I was told, what I was educated to believe to be the truth and the harmful effects and all of that. Wonderful stuff they pump into you at a young age.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
the
so
gateway drug.
Exactly. So I went through life believing that. And, I went through college and, that's kind of where my life started turning more. You're growing up, you're becoming an adult. And I noticed that I was suffering from severe sleeping and digestive issues. And as I was getting closer to graduation and I'm doing, internships, I'm really getting busy, it's starting to really hinder my capabilities and I'm not feeling great. So my partner, who's actually my wonderful co-founder and spouse, Brian, always was a consumer of cannabis and a full-on believer. So he was always suggesting it to me and I, said, no, thank you.
So that's interesting that you have people in a relationship. One is adamantly against it, one is for it. Did that cause any friction, or was it kind of like, hey, it helps you, I don't care for it?
No, I
whatever?
would say it was honestly like we were dating in college, so it was honestly a little bit of a sticky point. I gave him a lot of pushback because I didn't understand. So in my mindset, it was altering his whole being, right? So when he was consuming, he was now this almost equated to alcohol. That was really where my mind went.
Yeah.
So it did push back a lot. Why do you have to consume to go out? And he's like, because it's fun and it makes me feel better, and so he was honestly the person who suffered from some stomach stuff as well and would always suggest it, but I was very reluctant. And it wasn't until about 2013 that I was prescribed to sleeping pills, I was prescribed to digestive medicine, and nothing was working, and I really felt like it was taking years off my life. So you could say I hit my wit's end, and I decided that I had nothing to lose, that I was going to finally give, cannabis a try. And that's when I went ahead and tried two forms of it, which are the two forms that I still consume today. And that was in a concentrate form and in an edible form. And I was just blown away. You could say overnight, look in the mirror. Oh my gosh, I wake up feeling great. I slept like a baby. I'm feeling wonderful inside.
Now, how were you falling to sleep before that? Were you having a couple drinks before bed to help you relax, or was
sleeping
it like Benadryl?
I was on sleep. Yeah, and I actually got prescribed sleeping pills at 25. So I was fairly young to have this, potential life habit, something.
Yeah.
That's what scared me. It scared me to get into a rut of something too, and it wasn't working. So that was the worst part. I was taking something, I didn't feel great, and it wasn't solving the problem. And the doctors that I was working with, their only option was to go to a more potent pill. And I was like, no, this.
Or put you on the cocktails of different medicines.
Exactly, and I knew that there's got to be a better way. So, I guess you could say I threw my hands up. I finally told my spouse he was right. You don't say that often in relationships, but I finally told him he was right, and I became a full believer because it just changed my life immediately. And then the snowball positive effects of cannabis in my life, I just couldn't ignore.
Like what?
I was feeling very happy. I had definitely dealt with, you could say, a rough incident in my life a few years prior to that. It was something that was weighing on me and I was carrying around. And I found when I was consuming that I honestly had this like burst of positivity and belief in myself. And it was really exciting. And I wanted to keep chasing that. You know, who doesn't want to chase positivity?
That's
awesome. Yeah. It's
almost like a PTSD kind of thing. What we see with the vets, right? And it 100%. Just helps release that. Interesting.
Yeah. So I
love
just
that.
became someone that had to now talk about cannabis everywhere I went, because I felt that maybe if I heard about it more, or maybe if someone had really taken me aside and told me how it was changing their life in different ways, you know, I would have. That was kind of the come around, right? When you're hearing, you can't ignore these. You can't ignore these miraculous revelations.
So this is how many years before Coast? Are we talking 2 or 3? Or?
This is about 2014, 2015.
So a couple years before legalization even.
Exactly. Yep. So I became a medical patient.
Yep.
And I was very disappointed in what we had early offerings here. Yeah. And I was shocked. You know, as a medical patient, I really expected high quality. I expected good ingredients for you. And I couldn't find that. So I had to start making it, because I knew that if this is something I'm bringing into my life every day, then it has to be good. You know, it shouldn't be this idea of alcohol. Block your nose to get down the shot, right? To get the effect.
Right.
We don't need that.
Tastes like motor oil when you...
Exactly. What are we doing? Yeah. Exactly. So I started making my own products.
Yeah.
And I started sharing them with loved ones, and I was getting a lot of feedback and success. And, you know, in the background, something that, you know, Brian and I had always connected on early in our relationship was this desire to be an entrepreneur and this natural entrepreneurial spirits. And when we graduated, we both went on, you know, kind of business, more minded tracks. And we were both having a lot of success, but we always had those, what if we quit and do this? And what if we quit and do that? And it was crazy, because without even us saying it, we just came together and we're moving this ball forward on this company. And we were investing a lot into educating ourselves, educating people around us of the benefits.
Now, were you doing this with the intention of starting the business, or was it, this is working, I need to know everything I can about it, hey, I can make a business out of this?
Exactly. Definitely the latter. And that's where it just was this aha moment where you're like, yes, let's do it.
We can do this.
We can do it. And that was exactly it. And the we can do it has been a motto that we say often, because we are definitely the smaller fish in the sea of cannabis. And you're seeing these massive acquisitions and these conglomerations forming right before our eyes in a very early company. And we do have this mindset of, yes, we can, and we do deserve to be here, because we are bringing something different, and we are bringing it with an eye of the consumer. We feel that other brands don't have, because we were medical patients. Yep. We are daily consumers, and that we know how we want, you know, the plant to be perceived.
You had a great quote when we spoke before this. You said, our products are so good because they're being made by people who need them.
Yes.
I love that line. Yes. I love that line.
It's very true, right? And I'm support other brands, of course, when I'm out and about. But I do rely on my products the most. So if I'm relying on them, then they have to be great. They have to work. There's nothing to hide behind when I'm going to be the number one customer.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference between a group like yours versus, like somebody said, the conglomerates, right? They're pumping out millions of gummies a day. They're not overly concerned of the efficacy or the quality or the purity of them. It's more of a monetary decision than a customer focused decision. So I applaud you for being more customer focused.
Thank you. And and it's what sets us apart, and it's what will continue to set us apart, I believe, even more so as we continue to see these roll-ups.
So let's talk about Coastal Cannabis now. So you went through this transition in college, you got into cannabis, you guys educated yourself, you and your husband, and you said, hey, we can make a business out of this, right? And you accomplished something rather historic, being the first independent cannabis manufacturer in Massachusetts. So let's talk about, tell people what is that, and then what you guys do and how you do it.
Sure. So the cannabis product manufacturer means that we operate as a business-to-business model. So we do not have a retail. We are not customer facing. We make all of our products in Wareham, Massachusetts, great community. And we disperse those and sell them through various retailers here in Massachusetts. Specifically, our product line, Coast Cannabis Co., what we focus on is using only organic, fair trade, ethically, sustainably sourced, and all natural ingredients. And we do that. So
how easy is that to find?
Well, when we started the company, there was not the pandemic.
Right.
Although we did launch we have only operated during pandemic time. So it's definitely been very challenging. But that's our commitment.
Yeah.
And it goes as far as, recently one of our most popular bars, our birthday cake bar. It's delicious. It's very exciting to have, even when it's not your birthday. But we use an organic vanilla cookie in that, and the cookie was discontinued. So we've been on the search for months and months, and we really didn't want to bring in anything less than. We wanted to meet our standards. And after months of searching and scouring, we were very happy to report we were able to find a wonderful, if not some of my employees feel better, cookie option that's organic.
What makes it so hard to have an organic vanilla cookie? Is it the sugar? What's the hard? They just don't make that many of them.
Yeah, that's
just
exactly
supplies,
it.
Yeah.
When you think about organic ingredients and you think about something like a sugar cookie, right?
Yeah.
You're probably picturing the grocery store and there's a lot of options. Or if I go into Whole Foods, everything's organic, right? The scale that we have to buy on, and that's kind of a big thing that we're seeing. And I hope the supply chain doesn't cause too many disruptions that we've already seen. But you are just seeing that they're to the level of the organic we like to purchase. Not all of these companies, can sell at these large quantities. So we do find ourselves having to source a lot. We source as local as possible, but it's challenging. It's a full-time job.
Have you found the supply chain disruptions in organic is in excess of non-organic products?
Yes.
So that supply chain's been disrupted more.
I think so, because it's kind of a bit more of a niche too, and when it's a supply and demand, you kind of get a
more time to market sensitive because you can't have organic products sitting on the shelf for a year and a half before you sell them.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So do you do third party manufacturing for other people looking to put products, or you just your own at Coastal?
Right now, we do only our own here at Coast, but we are focused on we are busy, I should say, and that's kind of the reason why we're focused on ours is we do chocolates, gummies, and vapes. So we do have quite an offering, and we do keep our entire staff very busy.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Tell us about your gummies. Now, you had mentioned when we talked before that you were developing a new product, I believe specific for gut health with CBG in it.
Yeah, so that is our Tangerine Gummy. So that is a gummy we actually released back in May. And it has been doing very well. The feedback has been so awesome from consumers that have consumed it. So specifically a little bit about that product category. We rolled out 2 products at the same time. The Tangerine Gummy is a mix of THC, CBD, and CBG. And then our Cranberry Pomegranate Gummy is a mix of THC, CBD, and CBN. So in the Tangerine, the CBG, as you mentioned, has shown signs in the limited studies that are out there, I will add, but it has showed signs to be great for digestive health. So if someone might be suffering from, chronic stomach pain or colitis, Crohn's, some of those unfortunate diseases, that they can use CBG and actually find the very soothing effect on their stomach. And that has been the feedback that we've been receiving in market from consumers.
I've actually heard that from a couple different people. It's becoming more of a thing that people are starting to recognize that particular cannabinoid for gut health.
Exactly, it is, and it's just great that it's getting, some notoriety because it does have a lot of similar CBD properties too, with some anti-inflammatory and just a nice even. It's great. It's great when you bring these cannabinoids together because you basically are building, I guess, not a great reference, but a cocktail or a food, a recipe. You're putting something together. You're building various ingredients, and you use them in such a way to create an outcome. And that's what we do with the Tangerine Gummies and the Cranberry Pomegranate, is we refer to it more as a curated experience. The Tangerine Gummies are going to be great. Yeah, so it makes the tangerines great for daytime use. Yeah. A very soothing, uplifting effect. Now, on the other side, the Cranberry Pomegranate Gummies using CBN has shown signs to be very sedative.
It knocks me out.
Perfect, right?
Yeah.
So that was something that I had been waiting for us to be able to create and, build up and launch this product, because I, being someone who came to cannabis for sleep, felt that there was a lot of other people that are coming to cannabis for sleep, and let's give them something specifically to help them sleep.
So let's talk about that, because I would say 90% of gummies, when you go into a store, they have indica sleep, sativa energy, and they're hybrid for whatever. And there's a lot of controversy in the space about about sativa, indica, or is it the cannabinoids that actually do it? And is this just a marketing ploy with that out there? So let's have a conversation about that, because I'm of the opinion, or more rapidly becoming of the opinion, that it isn't sativa or indica, that it is what cannabinoids are in there that really make the difference in the results of it. So tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me the story.
I will go on the record and say my opinion is that it is a 100% marketing ploy when you're seeing these items. And specifically, I'll cover the category of edibles, because there's a ton we could talk about. But with edibles, you have to just step back and realize how they're consumed. You eat an edible and it has to be digested through your body. Nothing can change that, right? We have a digestive tract, and that's how food digests. With this idea of the cannabis oil being able to have these different effects is, as you back it up and you look through the process of how the oil is made, you start saying, well, how can that be possible? When you're creating cannabis oil, unfortunately, along the process, there are things such as the terpenes that get degraded, right? They get removed from the system. So those are not there. You remove, unfortunately, some cannabinoids too, because they have different levels of volatility that they can handle before they dissipate. The idea when you're creating, I'll say, a distillate, so we're comparing apples to apples on these products that are saying that, the end goal of a distillate is
people who don't know, the distillate would go, the oil that would go into the gummies or the vape cartridge.
Exactly. And that's what's commonly used specifically here in Massachusetts across edibles. And when you're seeing that is when you get to the end of distillate, the goal is to have that to be a very high potent THC. To get to that, you really remove everything else. Then the argument will say, well, we add terpenes back into our blend. And then you step back to see how terpenes are created, which is normally using a volatile product such as a hydrocarbon. The body is going to rid those right away, even if they are added back into the product. And the digestive tract has shown that it can't really absorb or digest natural terpenes anyways. It's just not something it does. So the amount that the product would have added back to it would really be such a moot point by the time it gets to the digestive tract.
Because it has to go through the bloodstream.
Exactly.
If you smoke it, is it different?
100%.
There you go.
When you smoke, immediately enters your bloodstream. You're inhaling, you're taking in all the terpenes, you're taking in all of the...
Is this the same if you vape and smoke, or just smoking, or...
No, vaping is the same. I guess
the same as
that
process.
Gets a little bit into like the oil and what the oil makeup is there.
Right.
But no, any sort of inhalation, or if you were consuming it in a tincture form, something that you're going to have go sublingually through your tongue and your sublingual glands, those actually, that's not your digestive tract, right? That's how it absorbs. So a tincture would be 100% different. If someone was saying this was a sativa tincture and because it was made, this and it has these terpenes, then yes. But I am a believer that when you consume a plant and you consume a strain, right, you consume it for its attributes, whether it's a sativa because it's a upbeat, it's, it's high in that CBG, it's high in a few other, it's high in the THC, it gets you nice and buzzy. Or you might consume something like a purple punch, something that is going to help you relax. It's a high indica. There's this idea that when you smoke, that's what you're chasing are these effects.
Yeah.
So that's why we create these curated effects in our gummies, because we feel it's the cannabinoids that you're chasing when you're smoking. So we need to rely on those cannabinoids in the edibles to give you those effects.
So what's the process to capture those? Because like you said, when you process the oil, you strip everything out with the THC. Then you have to add the cannabinoids back in, right? So what's that process?
Sure. So I will say the lab is where they keep me out of the most. I'm
generally explain.
Great in packaging, great in the kitchen. The lab I know enough enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
But basically, it's along the way, you have to capture.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the idea of you're capturing off and you're adding kind of you're building it together at the end to formulate this concoction.
Got it.
That is this certain ratio that you're making. So you'll see some products like ours, we do a 1:1:1 ratio. You might see other products in market.
Which would be 1 THC, 1 CBD, 1 CBG, or CBN.
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
So you're hitting those for Massachusetts, 5 milligrams kind of each. You might see other groups in market do like a 20:1. So they're doing a much higher CBD to a lower THC because, there are consumers that want that. So that's where you see those ratioed products hit the market and do well.
All right. So the lesson here is for consumers, if you're smoking indica sativa, there's a difference. If you're vaping it, probably, depending on the process. If you're tincture, there's a difference, again, depending on the process, how much of that effect. If you're eating edibles, sativa indica is meaningless. It's the cannabinoids that matter when you're consuming an edible.
That is my 100% belief. I will say if you turn over the
based
product,
on my non-scientific, completely user-based study of myself, that's 100% true.
Right. And if you flip over the package, don't be afraid to ask to see the compliance label in the store before you make your purchase. They will hold the package, but they will let you look at it. But, look at it. And if you're looking for that mix, if you're looking for something that's supposed to be a sativa product, then it should have stuff in it such as the CBG or other cannabinoids. Or if you're looking for that indica, that sleep, it should have things like CBN and CBD. If it just has THC, that's one high, no matter what plant it comes from. It's one cannabinoid. It has one outcome.
It's kind of like the gasoline in a car, right? It's all the same gasoline in a car. The cars are different, but the gasoline is the same. And that's what the THC is, right?
Right, exactly.
Simple analogy.
I always think about it as an ingredient. No matter what you put flour in, flour has its job. It does what it does. It's whether you put it in a sweet dish or a savory dish. Yeah. And what you mix it with is what gives you your final item.
That's fascinating. And when we talked, I think we first talked maybe a month ago, and you said this, and it made sense to me thinking about it, but I was kind of like, well, indica sativa. And then I actually went out and I bought CBN and I bought the spin. Like, you know what? She was right. It makes a very, very big difference. Very big difference.
Yeah, and that's what proof to me is. The proof is in the pudding.
And do you use the CBG? Is that the gummies you use for your gut health and stuff like that?
Weekends are my favorite if I'm out and about, safely, not driving under the influence. Yeah. Someone else driving. But they're my favorite for daytime. And
people who are listening to this who want to find out where they can buy those, is it coastalcannabis.com?
Coastcannabisco.com.
Coastcannabisco.com, and there's a location finder to find out where they're being sold.
Yep, and you're able to see all the stores we're in. You can actually go ahead and type in your zip code, bring you to the store's website to check their menus.
Perfect.
And we do have exciting new gummy that we can talk about too.
Tell me, THV, correct?
THCV, yes.
THCV. So first, explain what THCV is, what it does, and why it's important in this gummy.
Sure. So I'm terrible at saying the formal names, so I will stick to acronyms so that I don't butcher it too much.
Everyone butchers them.
Exactly. It's a tough one. But THCV is a very exciting cannabinoid that, again, in the limited studies that are out there, we'll always have to do that with a little bit of asterisk that we're not giving medical advice. But it has shown to be a great increaser of energy.
Okay.
So, and I'm not talking just, I want to be upbeat, I want to go out and do some stuff today. For working out, for really going out and doing like an active sport.
Okay, like an energy drink almost sort
exactly,
of thing. Okay.
Yes. That's what I really...
Without 3 pounds of sugar and 200 milligrams of caffeine?
Exactly. It's natural.
You won't
and
have a heart
attack
having
with your body.
Yeah. What was that Loco?
Oh, Four Loco.
Four Loco people were dying from?
Yeah. No deaths from cannabis. Yeah. Happy to report that. But so this will be specifically, it's a raspberry lime gummy. So we're very excited to bring that out. It is referred to as the active blend.
Okay.
And it is a mix of THC, CBD, and THCV. So the THC and the CBD we're all familiar with. They're going to go together, give you a great balanced high when consumed at the same time. The THCV is really
explain that. So some people don't know that. Like,
sure.
Like you got THC, you got CBD. You said it balances it. What happens?
Wonderful. So THC on its own can be, a little bit jittery, especially when people consume a high THC plant, flower or a vape. They might say, "Oh, I got really anxious. I didn't enjoy it." That's common. Ways to balance that out. A very well-known one is the CBD cannabinoid. CBD is a non-psychoactive. It's a very anti-inflammatory, more euphoric kind of feeling. So bringing that in with your THC, almost if you kind of looked on a scale, the THC is sitting up high, CBD is a little bit lower. It's like, hey man, like let's meet in the middle and be chill.
Okay.
And that's really what bringing them together. So it's referred to as the entourage effect.
Yep.
When you start bringing these different cannabinoids in, that's what gives the effect. So it always can go back to when you smoke weed or the cannabis, the plant in its form, you're getting this whole mix of cannabinoids. You're getting this entourage effect. You're getting this either this nice high or this low, chill. So bringing that in with edibles is what we're doing with bringing these different cannabinoids.
So by the 1-to-1, you get the health benefit that you're seeking without the fuzzy head high because the CBD kind of counteracts the THC.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly. And then the THCV comes to the party.
Now, is this an additive or instead of THC? So it's the three of them,
right?
It's
the three of them. So it's there as well.
Yep.
THCV is showing to be signs of non-psychoactive.
Yep.
So it's not adding to that like buzz high, but it's doing its job of giving the body a lot of energy.
It's non-psychoactive, really?
That's what the studies show. I will not. I think it's
based on what we know, we can say, right?
Based on the way it's being marketed and stuff. Yeah, like I would say though, there's a little bit I feel in there, so we make sure that we're balancing that out and stuff and not overdosing anyone.
Yeah.
But on the THCV, like I said, it's really good for increase. So it's really increase in energy. So it's great for working out, and that was actually something very early on in my personal journey towards using cannabis. I was introduced to a strain called Durban Poison, and it's a sativa. It's a landrace strain. It's very difficult to grow. It does not grow in abundance, and a true sativa plant, they don't tend to produce a whole lot. That's really why you don't.
It's funny.
See.
People call it weed, but it's really a sensitive plant. It's really is.
I'm sorry. Not everyone can grow it.
It's not like a dandelion that you can't kill them. Trust me, they're easy to kill.
They are sensitive. They need to be nurtured, right? Yeah. They are magical. So it's definitely one of those things where you're not seeing these strains that are super high in THCV because they're definitely a little bit more difficult to grow and they're not as abundant. And specifically here in Massachusetts, we don't have the best growing conditions. We're either super hot and humid or we're freezing cold, and you're combating that. So early on in my journey with cannabis, I was introduced to Durban Poison. And at that time, I actually was just started on a fitness journey. I had always struggled with my weight. It was something I just carried with me, and I was getting older, and it was very, very frustrating, and I just knew I had to finally make the change. And I do believe that if it was not for the use of specifically the strain and the positivity of THCV that I felt, I would not have, had such success that I had on my journey to becoming a new person.
Fascinating.
Yes, I felt when I consumed it specifically, which it actually first happened by accident. I'd booked a workout class, forgot, consumed, and my reminder went off. I went, oh no, what am I going to do? And, it was encouraged to me that I should go give it a try. And I went, and it was the best class I had ever taken in my life. And I don't know if I've ever worked out without consuming cannabis beforehand now.
So now the gummies, they always say you feel the effect in about an hour, right? So if you're taking one of these new gummies coming out, the THCV, should you take it, if I have a 3:00 class, I should take it at 1, or are they quicker acting? And
they're definitely faster acting.
Okay.
So we do some proprietary techniques in-house to ensure
quicker onset.
Exactly. So the biggest thing, with that, it's kind of buzzwords right now. Everyone's throwing around nanotechnology or, all this. But what that does, that shears the molecule. When you shear the molecule, you create more bioavailability, which is what you need. But what's missing from a lot of recipes is, key components such as like high fats. So you need to make sure cannabis loves fat. So when it's consumed with fat, it's going to, one, allow your body to digest more of cannabis, because when you eat an edible, you're not digesting 100%.
I never thought of that.
So that's why someone might say, oh, edibles don't really work for me. You might say, hey, take this, serving with a scoop of peanut butter. They might have, chances are, they're going to have a different outcome because they have the fat that their body, that THC was craving to digest, that their body didn't have for them. So if you want something to have a little faster onset to, consume it with a fat. Consume it with a nice rich fat, an avocado, nice red meat, peanut butter. Definitely.
Okay.
So we do a proprietary process of molecule shearing, we'll say, and making sure there's proper fat in our recipe to help the consumer's body digest. I'll also say a lot of consumers, and again, with the onset of cannabis, it really is a personal journey.
Right.
No matter what the label says, there's so many things of the person just has to figure it out. Start low, go slow. Know you always have tomorrow. If you didn't consume enough today and you don't feel it, there's tomorrow to try again and have more. But
at first, always go slow and low, right?
Yeah, it's not worth it to have a negative effect. Yeah. But if you are feeling a little, too much, that's where they say consuming CBD solely or sniffing black pepper. That's a little old wives' tale, maybe we'll call it.
No way, really?
That the idea of the scent in the pepper and all of that kind of triggers
something.
Exactly, because that matches up to a lot of the properties of certain plants, cannabis plants.
So that's an interesting point, because I don't think people realize that, the cannabis reacts with the endocannabinoid system in your body, and depending what that system needs really depends on how the cannabis reacts. So you and I and Nathan here are going to have completely different reactions to the same thing. It really depends on our body and what our body is craving from the plant.
Exactly. And, fat intake and hydration level are two other components that can make even the most experienced user have moments where they say, I didn't feel it that, or
so how does hydration factor in? If you're dehydrated, you get less, or if you're drinking water, you get less.
They're saying more if the body is dehydrated, because the digestive system and it's not absorbing as much.
Okay.
That can cause a negative effect on the consumer.
Meaning they won't feel it, or they'll feel it in a bad, like it'll hit them, like they'll get jittery.
No, more so that they might not.
Anything.
Yeah. Or but I will also add, cannabis is a dehydrant. We've all experienced dry mouth.
Right.
So typically when anyone consumes edibles, there's that report of, I was thirsty or I woke up, a little bit more parched than normal. That is totally
But you're really
expected.
referring to prior to ingestion.
Exactly,
Right. I hadn't heard that. That's interesting.
Yes, and another thing too is we do use only organic ingredients, and I think especially when it comes to a gummy specifically, a lot of gummy recipes kind of use terrible ingredients, corn syrup, different oils, cane sugar.
Yeah, I've seen corn syrup in a lot of them.
Yeah, and we've just been taught over the years, right, that's not a great ingredient for the body. So when we put
isn't it actually worse than sugar? I think in the response with your insulin levels.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, I think it's actually worse than sugar. It's better for your teeth, but I think it's worse for your body or something like that.
It's all bad. And then not to mention the artificial ingredients that we see in a lot of the recipes. So when we made our recipe, we kind of took the classic gummy recipe apart. We like to say we put it back together using organic and all natural ingredients. And I believe that is why customers have a lot of report to us, a faster onset of our products, because the body is not struggling to break those other ingredients down, right? THC or whatever cannabinoid is in that product, that's just one of the ingredients. There's all this other stuff the body still has to break down and send to the correct areas.
Interesting. That's a great point.
We really feel it's, the body is happy that it's breaking down
now,
organic
with that
stuff.
Faster onset, obviously, then there's a faster offset, right? So people who take a gummy and have to wait 6-7 hours now, sometimes maybe it's only 3 to 4, because your gummies are breaking down quicker in the body. You're getting the effects sooner, so you're going to obviously offset sooner too.
Right, because the standard
in
duration.
Theory, anyway.
Exactly. Just because it starts sooner, it can't go. But again, every consumer is a little bit different.
Right,
Some people
know your
report,
body.
Know your body for sure, and experiment before you you take too much.
Wow, this has been great. All right, so let's fast forward 3 to 5 years into the future. Give us something you'd really like to see happen, either with yourself, your business, the Massachusetts cannabis business, the industry nationwide, politics, whatever. Tell us your dream for the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay, it's a little maybe twofold if I can touch on.
Absolutely, we had a 3-parter a couple weeks ago.
Okay, maybe
so
I'll add. So I won't.
fine.
I'll say multi-part. I don't want to hold
fine.
myself. I start rambling,
That's
right? So first and foremost, what I would love to see a little bit sooner, if we could, than 3 to 5 years, would be a Safe Banking Act to pass. I think we need that more so than federal legalization. I think, unfortunately, our federal government has proved to be not capable of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're quite capable of this.
So is that so? Going to specifically to you guys, like I know it's an issue, dispensaries holding cash and things like that. Is it really hindering B2B sales?
So the Safe Banking Act specifically in Massachusetts is a great state. We're very fortunate. We actually have a lot of banking here.
Yeah,
there are still states that have been around for a long time that do not have these safeguards in place and make them very vulnerable places. But more so, the Safe Banking Act allows loans and allows a little bit easier path for consumers, or more, I guess, traditional paths for consumers, because the idea of banks getting involved right now, a lot of banks won't touch it. So you're limited with who you can work with.
Or you pay loan shark rates.
Exactly, right? So this would allow, the more banks to get involved, more traditional loans for people to take out on equipment or vehicles and stuff like that. That also, would help. What I would like kind of plays into what I would like to see, would allow more small businesses to get in. I really do feel we are an anomaly in what we were able to accomplish. We are a small business. We, capitalized it ourselves, and we used some money from friends and family and did a lot of sweat equity. And it's so challenging, and there's so many hoops you have to jump through. So access to capital is huge. And
I think it's the number one problem in the industry right now.
It is.
Number one problem.
It is. And I do feel that would just dramatically pivot the industry and who could get in, because right now we're just keeping far too many people out because they can't get access to proper capital.
Yeah.
And then overall for Massachusetts, it plays into that. I would like to just see more of a balance of locally owned and operated. I was proud to be around when these, hearings were happening to legalize. I'm proud to be one who spoke in front of the joint committee on what I wanted to see the industry look like, and I continue to do so at any public comment period. Hopefully the CCC will bring those back now that COVID regulations are decreasing. I felt those were very helpful. It brought the industry together too in a manner where everyone was welcome. It wasn't a networking event. It was open to the public.
I gotta say, everyone bitches about regulators, but I talk to people in some other states, and we're pretty lucky. The CCC in Massachusetts, I think, there's always things you want them to do less of or more of and faster or slower, but I think they've been pretty responsive as a whole to the industry in making it more functionally useful and making the regulations more appropriate to the stage the industry's in.
I agree.
Compared to some other states that are just completely train wrecks right now.
I agree. And I think a lot of it has to do, for me personally, feeling that way is because when they formed under the open meeting law, that's when I actually left my professional career and said, I'm jumping in. Yeah, so in 2017, I left my professional career. And it was perfect timing. The CCC formed in September, and I joke I went on the CCC Roadshow. If there was any sort of meeting happening in Boston, I was there. Subcommittee, I was there. I was just trying to absorb everything and make sure that I was understanding where this industry was going, because I wanted to be part of it. I had to make sure there was a spot for me in this industry. And, that's what I think is just I would like to see, because we fought for that. At hours and hours of time has been spoken by local Massachusetts entrepreneurs and cannabis consumers and caregivers about the importance of keeping a local component here and how important that would be for the industry at a large. And unfortunately, I feel we're seeing a rapid decline in that. We're not seeing locals get in. And when we do, we're seeing them get bought up very quickly. And we're seeing a lot of consolidation. We're seeing a lot of blatant rule breaking going on, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, I don't see many of the small local entrepreneurs getting fined by the state of the CCC. It's the big MSOs who are coming in and just doing things and having these $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 fines levied on them for their actions. It's not the local people doing that.
No, and we, want to know why? Because we can't afford the fine.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the thing. We can't afford the, slap on a wrist to maybe one group is going to put my group out of business. So we have to play by the rules that are given. That's a really interesting point. and fight to change the ones we feel are unjust.
Well, what's your interpretation of which way they're moving on that? Bringing them back? Have they even said, or are they just kind of like, we'll know when we know kind of thing? For the public comment periods.
Oh, I don't know. I've pushed a little
really
bit.
Said either way.
No, I know that they've mentioned they wanted to do maybe a redraft, a potential redraft of the regulations, and that does involve a public comment period. So hopefully they'll do that. But I do know we are coming up on, I believe, the chairman's term.
Yeah, it's got to be soon,
it's
right?
September or
August.
August.
Very soon.
So I am concerned that with, obviously being the chairman, if that is a larger role to fill, I am concerned that could create some delays. They
punt to the next one because they won't be able to complete it while he's still chairman kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I'm just not sure. It's been tough because, they felt so accessible, and then now with COVID, no one is accessible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, that's actually, I love that. What are your goals? Because it's always something unique and different, and that's very unique and very different. But I also think it's very specific to how this industry really started, and in some ways just starting to lose that. So I think kind of recentering everyone on, hey, this has to start at the local level. I think that's a really noble goal. I think that's interesting, and I hope you're successful at that.
Thank you. I would point to every other industry.
Yeah.
When you can buy local, it's always this idea of it's being done better, right? And typically it is.
They have to.
Exactly. And I think we're almost missing that with cannabis right now. It's seen with these big brands. Oh, they operate in X amount of markets and they're so great.
Yeah.
Well, they're Pepsi.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of chaos right now out there, right? People are kind of running around 6 different directions trying to figure out which way the industry is going to go.
Right. So I think there's a balance. I think in every industry, competition is great. In the end, a consumer should win in a competitive market because everyone's striving to put out the best product. And
I guess it's like the farmer's market, right?
Exactly.
I'm going to pay a higher price for that tomato, but I know it's going to be delicious. When I go into the local supermarket and buy the ones in plastic, maybe it's good this time, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Well, the best part about Coast, I will add, is that we have our pricing set that it retails at the same price as these other groups in stores. So we make sure that consumers are able to get these products that they deserve at a price that the other products are being sold at.
Premium targeted products at prices that the bulk manufacturers are making their products at.
Exactly.
Perfect.
We believe our
Starbucks at Dunkin' prices.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Smaller profit
without
margins.
Without the 45-minute wait in line.
Exactly. Smaller profit margins are fine because we know what we're doing is what's best for the industry and best for the consumer.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's a great place to end this. So, Angela Brown, co-founder and CEO of Coast Cannabis. That's coastcannabisco.com. We'll have links to all the social media channels when we publish this, so you can follow up and get your CBG gummies for your tummy and your CBN gummies for your sleep. And your THCV for your workout and your exercise.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.